it's Hilary from the Red Brick Center for the Arts in Aspen, Colorado. This week, I'm going to show you a project on making a decorative birdhouse. This birdhouse was given to me and it's made out of ceramics. Ceramics and clay, they're super fun to use, but you really need to do projects with clay at a school or a clay studio because that's where the kiln is to fire it and to glaze it. So we can make a decorative birdhouse at home looking pretty similar with some simple materials that you have at your house, and it'll turn out just like this one. So the first thing you're going to need is some cardboard, and you're going to need that cardboard from cereal box, cracker box, maybe you have a frozen pizza box. So a frozen pizza box is great because it's big enough. If you don't have that, you might need a couple boxes so that you have enough cardboard. You're also going to need some magazines. If you don't have magazines, you could use paper or you could use wrapping paper. If you used paper, you'd want to color it first. So I like magazines because they're already colored and they have fun pictures on them to use to decorate the outside of your birdhouse. You're going to need some scissors. You're going to need some water and a paintbrush. You're going to need some Elmer's glue. I find that Elmer's glue works better for this project than a glue stick. You might want to have a ruler at the beginning of the project, but if you don't, that's okay. And towards the end of the project, you'll probably want to have some watercolor paints. Oh, and one more thing. You're going to need some tape. Tape of any kind. I'm going to use this painter's tape because that's what I have, but if you don't have this kind of tape, you could use the clear tape, you could use duct tape, any kind of tape, but you are going to need a little bit of tape. So let's get started. And I'll show you all the steps on a decorative birdhouse. Remembering, a decorative birdhouse is for decoration. So a bird wouldn't live in there. You wouldn't want to hang it in a tree. It'd need to go somewhere where it doesn't get wet. It could sit in your windowsill inside, or you could put it outside in a window box. But it's really for decoration, and it's a really fun project. So let's get started. Okay, here we go. So the first part is doing the front and the back of the birdhouse. So I'm going to do this with a Sharpie so that you can see, but I do recommend that you do this with a pencil. And we're going to be using the part of the box that is close to the fold, if you have a fold, or at the very bottom. So this very bottom is going to be the bottom of the front of the birdhouse. So we're not going to draw over any of the folds in this part. So I'm going to do my front on this piece here. And the first part is to decide how tall you want your birdhouse to be. So if I were to measure mine, maybe I'd make my birdhouse 6 inches tall, but you could make it a taller or shorter. If you make it taller than 6 inches, you're going to need to have plenty of cardboard for the other parts. So I'm going to go with about that, and I'm going to make a dot at the top. And then I'm going to go like this on one side and like that on the other side. And so I have made the peak or the triangle of the roof, or not really the roof, but the peak of the front of the birdhouse. So the next part here is doing the sides. The sides don't come straight down like you would think in a regular house drawing. Instead, the sides come in at a little bit of an angle, so kind of a diagonal line. We're going to go down like that to the bottom, and over here, down like that to the bottom. Try to make it as even as you can, and then this here is the very bottom. All birdhouses do have a hole, so I'm going to mark where that hole is going to get cut out. Mine will be just like that. So the next part is to cut this one out, and when you cut it out, cut real carefully on your lines. And after you cut it out, we're going to trace it on either this same piece of cardboard if there's room, or on another piece. So I have my front, this is the front, so if I have the front cut out, I could put this here and go, oh, it fits. So I think I'll do that so I don't waste any extra cardboard. But if it doesn't fit, I could put it over on this piece and trace around it. So to trace around it, I'm gonna set it down and I'm gonna take my marking, and make sure when you're tracing that you're not going anywhere where there's a fold in the cardboard. Okay, so I'm gonna go all the way around with my marking tool. And then once that's all traced, ooh, I didn't trace that very well. I better try again. Oh, and this is interesting. So right at the tippy top, it almost went over a fold, but I got lucky and it didn't. So if you trace it and it goes over a fold, then just trace it somewhere else, get some more cardboard. I got lucky, I can still use this piece. I'm gonna cut this one out, and then we're gonna talk about how to cut out that hole. That can be tricky, but I have a trick for that trickiness. So if you could find something that's a little bit pointy, that would be helpful. So I have a pen. So I'm gonna take the front of my birdhouse, where I have that hole drawn, or that circle. I'm gonna take my pen, I'm gonna hold it, and I'm gonna twist. I'm gonna poke it, and look, my pen went through to the other side. So now I have a big enough spot here where I can get my scissors in, and then I can cut all the way around right where I drew, and I can get all of that out. So you don't need any special things, nothing sharp, no knives, nothing like that. We can cut it out just with scissors. So we have the front and the back already cut out. I'm going to show you what's next in just a minute. All right, so the next part is doing the sides of our birdhouse. And so we're going to take the front on a new piece of cardboard, and we are going to turn it so that this diagonal side here lines up with the edge of the cardboard. So just like that. It's going to go from the bottom, very, very bottom, right there, up to here. So it's lined up on the edge. And what we're going to do is we are going to mark with a pencil or whatever you're marking with where the top of that edge is. So this is the edge of the front of the birdhouse, and this here is the edge of the piece of cardboard. So again, it's regular like this, twist it to the side, go to here, and mark. It's going to go from the bottom to the top. Now what we need to do is decide how long the side of our birdhouse is going to be. Are you going to make a square birdhouse? Is your birdhouse going to be more of a rectangle? So I'm going to go out here and draw a line. Try to draw it as straight as you can. If you have a ruler, that's even better. So we can use a ruler and draw a straight line, and then we can go down and draw the other straight line. And then when you're done with that, you're going to cut that out. So once it's cut out, we're going to need the other side. And so we always want to make sure that the sides match exactly, or our birdhouse is really hard to put together. So we're going to take this and trace it just like we did with the other, the front and the back. We're going to trace around this and then cut that out. You want to make sure that your sides are out of some cardboard material that has no folds. So right here is a fold. I'm making sure that my piece doesn't have a fold in it as I cut it. So now what I have done is I have the front, I have the side, I have the back, and I have another side. So if our sides are a little bit too big, because I'm looking at this one and it's a little taller than that roof, I might have to cut it down, but I'm not going to do that just yet. So I'll show you what's next in just a minute. All right, so I flipped my pieces over, and these parts with the writing on them are going to be on the inside of the birdhouse. But what I'm going to do is start working with some tape, and you're going to want to put tape. So the whole length from here down, or as close to it as you can, between the front and this one side. It's important that you line it up really, really good at the bottom or at this top edge. I'm gonna do the bottom because I think that's easier. So I'm lining it up really good at the bottom, and this top edge I think is a little tall. So I'll cut that off in just a minute. So I have that, and I'm gonna tape that all the way down, just like that. And if I have extra tape sticking out, I can turn it over and I can cut that extra tape off. And then when I turn this over and I look at it, this didn't really get lined up very well. So I need to go back and I need to make sure that the top of my wall ends right before the roof right there. So this was sort of the point here. So I made mine a little too tall before. So I can go back and I can cut that part off. Just like that. So now that's ready to go. So I have the front taped onto a side and it starts to stand up just like this. So then what we're gonna do is tape the back just like that onto the side, lining it up at the very, very bottom. We're gonna try to tape the whole length just like that, and then we're gonna flip it over and see if any tape sticks out. I did pretty good. So now we have it standing up just like this. Okay, so I'm gonna flip this over. It goes front, side, back, and then we have our last side, which I know is gonna be a little too tall, but that's okay. I'm gonna put some tape on that piece. And, oh, my tape is a little short, so I better get a little bit more tape. And I can put it right over that, just like that. And I'm gonna flip it over, and I'm gonna notice that right there, it's sticking up too much. So I'm gonna mark it right where it needs to stop. And I'm gonna use my ruler. And I'm gonna draw that line there, and I'm gonna cut that extra off. The last part is how we put the house all together. We're gonna need a piece of tape that actually goes on the outside. So we have the front and the side, the back, the other side. They all come around like this. So it's standing up on its own. This last piece, we're gonna put tape right here on this front edge. So I'm gonna get my tape ready. This part's sort of a little bit tricky. We can lay it down, put our tape right here, and then we sort of stand it up and we carefully push the tape around. Now if your tape's a little too tall, you can wrap it around the edge just like that and stick it down. So now you have that all done. We'll talk about the roof after just a minute. So now that we have our birdhouse built, we have the front, the back, and 2 walls, we need to talk about the roof. If you have cardboard that has a fold in it and it's big enough, it's great to be able to use that fold at the peak of the roof. So I have this big piece from this pizza box here, and see right here, there's a fold. Now I know that there's 2 folds, there's one here and there's one here, and that's okay to have that. If you don't have a piece that has a fold in it, you're still gonna need a piece that's big enough that goes from this side to the top and down this side over here. So you're gonna need a long enough piece, and then what you would do is you would fold it yourself. So I'm gonna use this piece that has this fold, and I'm gonna put it right on top of my birdhouse and see how it fits. And I think that it's gonna fit great. So it just fits. So you do want the front to hang over a little bit coming forward. So you want it to stick out a little bit in the front and stick out a little bit in the back. And then it's gonna come down on the sides, just like so. And you're gonna want to mark a little bit lower. So I'm gonna mark right here, just below that roof line, like that on that side, and sort of like this on this side. Try to make it even. once you take it off of your birdhouse, you could measure it with a ruler. So let's see how I did with making it even. Set that aside. And I'm gonna see here from the top of the roof over, I got about 4.5 inches. And oh, not bad, 4.5 inches on both sides. Okay, so this part here, we're just gonna draw a straight line and then another straight line all the way back. We're gonna cut this out. The rest of this is extra. And when I get that finished, I'll show you what's next. All right, so I have the roof cut out and I have left the roof unattached to the birdhouse. The next part we're gonna do is we're gonna work on decorating the roof and all sides of the birdhouse. Now I did leave mine without a bottom. If you wanted to have a bottom, you could take some cardboard, put it underneath your birdhouse and trace around it and cut it out and then tape it to this birdhouse. You'd want to do that now before you start working on the decorations. So if you want a bottom, that's how you do that. I'm going to leave mine without a bottom. And when we're working with this, we're going to be using the Elmer's glue and a paintbrush. Using glue with a paintbrush is really great, but you have to make sure that you have water nearby so that when you're all finished, your paintbrush sits in a cup of water, and that way your paintbrush won't go bad. Now, Elmer's glue is really great if you accidentally forget and you leave your paintbrush for a couple hours or even overnight. Oops, it's going to be hard as a rock. But you could soak it in some water and that glue will wash right out. Make sure that you use a little bit of soap when you wash your paintbrush to get all the glue out so it'll work with your watercolors later. So what you need to do is go through some magazines and find things that you like. It can be pictures that you like, it can be color that you like, and what we're going to do is we're going to glue the magazine on the surface of the birdhouse. So for example, I'm going to use this. I thought this was really pretty, all these flowers. And I'm going to take this, and I'm actually not really going to measure very much. I can feel that it fits pretty good, but I don't really want to cut it first, because if I do that, I can cut it a little too small. So I'm going to put some glue on just a scrap of my cardboard. I do need to work a little bit quickly, not super quick, but I'm going to take my glue and I'm going to paint it all over the surface of my cardboard. So when I do that, my glue has a little bit of color in it. That must be because I didn't wash my paintbrush good enough with the watercolor. But that's okay, because then you can see the glue maybe. So I'm getting it all over. And then this next part is where I'm going to set my magazine on top. Now if you didn't find something that's the whole page, you'd just set part of it on top and then you'd put some more glue and you'd put another piece on top. So I'm going to set mine down just like that. I'm going to feel underneath and slide it just a tiny bit there and put my hand inside and press. Now if you don't press your work, your glue is going to make your artwork look kind of wrinkly, because that glue and the paper, they get kind of wrinkly. So really rub, rub, rub all over the surface. And when you've done that, you can turn it over even. You can rub from this side, get on the inside. And then you're going to take your scissors and you're going to cut off all the extra. Once we get all that cut off, we're going to talk about how to get that hole back, because I put picture right over the top of the hole. So I'm going to get it all cut off, all that extra, and that's all done. That's the front of my birdhouse right now. So I can feel right here is that hole. It's very thin, so I can just poke my scissor carefully and then cut around and around and around until I get that hole back. And if you have a little bit extra sticking out and the edge looks kind of rough, I recommend taking your finger and just go around and smooth it like this. Gets all that magazine towards the inside. So the front is got paper on it. It's a little bit wrinkly, but that's okay because I can keep rubbing all those wrinkles out and then it'll dry. So when I decorate my birdhouse, I'm going to be decorating the front and the sides with the paper all the same way. So again, the step is to put glue on the cardboard, put your papers down, and then you can cut off any of the extra. So I'm going to work on that, putting the papers on the side and the back and the other side. And when I get that all finished, I'll show you what it looks like. All right, so I finished decorating the surfaces of my birdhouse. I have the front and one side here and the back and another side. So those parts are done. I can set that part aside for right now. The next thing I have to do is the same thing with the roof. So remember, this is where it creases like that. It goes over the top of my birdhouse. So I need to put glue on here, and then the magazines or the paper, or you could paint your roof if you wanted to. And when I get that finished, I'll show you how we attach the roof to the house. Okay, so I got my roof finished. So I have it all decorated with the papers from the magazines, and it folds where that fold was inside of the box here. I could just crease it right here to fold it again. And then what we are going to do is talk about how to attach the roof to the house. So the best thing to do this with is some clear tape. So if you have some clear tape, that would be really, really good, because otherwise we'll end up seeing some of the tape on your final project. So a little bit of clear tape works great. We're going to pull off a piece of clear tape and we're going to put it on between the roof and the house. So we're going to stick it on the roof first and then down onto the house. I'm actually going to do mine with some blue tape so that you can see it. But it would be much better to do this with clear tape. So if we flip this like here, we're going to put a little tape on the roof, and then the tape goes onto the house, just like that. Okay, so we only need two pieces. Another piece right here. We're going to put it on the roof and then push it down onto the house. So again, do this with the clear tape. If you have this kind, it's great. Or if you have packing tape, that works too. You're going to do this on the front and exactly the same thing on the back. So you're going to need 4 pieces of tape, okay? Piece here, a piece here. We're going to flip it over. We're going to put a piece here and a piece here. When you get that finished, I'll show you what's next. So my roof is attached to my birdhouse. Now that's just the first part, and it is pretty decorative, but I would say go a little further, challenge your creativity, and see what else you could add to your birdhouse. So on this one that I did before, I added these purple sort of leaf, sort of flowery things to my birdhouse. And the way that I did that was I just cut some more cardboard and I glued them on there. And then once they were dry, I was able to use my watercolor paints and paint them. This birdhouse, again, is that one that's all made out of clay. Look how cool it is. There's like flower petals here. There's a little bird. It has a chimney. So some of these are a little harder to do because they're sculptures and they're made out of clay, but you could make a flower, or you could do this out of that cardboard. So I encourage you to do something creative. Add something to the front or the roof of your birdhouse with some more cardboard and glue it on there. And that way you'll have the most creative and decorative birdhouse that you can. So once that's all finished, I do want to show you one last thing about the roof. So I'm going to show you that after I get my decorations on my birdhouse. I decided to add a couple spirals to my birdhouse. I'm going to paint them a little bit later after everything's all dry. but they are attached to the front and the roof. They look really fun. So the very last part that I would recommend, if you want, this is optional, is to set your birdhouse on its roof, kind of like that, just on one side. And if you think that your roof is not attached as well as you'd like it with that tape, you can just run a little bit of glue right along there on the roof. Now that will have to dry. And you would also do this on the back, just like that, along that edge. Again, that's gonna have to dry. Now, if you're real careful, you could also do this on this part here. Add a little bit of glue. It is at an angle, so it might drip, but you could try it right now. Just add a little glue. If you're afraid of it dripping too much, you could wait until that one part's dry and then flip it over. But I've put some glue there, and now I do have to wait for my whole project to dry before I can pick it up. So make sure that you just wait. When it's all dry, you can pick it up. And if you didn't paint your decorations, then you could do that after it's dry. Okay, so I finished my birdhouse. It had plenty of time to dry, and then what I did was I used these watercolor paints to paint the spiral that I put on the top and the other one that I put on the front. I hope that you've enjoyed this project. Don't forget to be creative. You wouldn't have to just stop there. You could add all sorts of decorations and sculptures to the outside of your birdhouse. Make sure to take a photo of your artwork and share it with the Red Brick so that we can see what you have created. See you next time.